Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Nature Folklore. It's 29th of August, 2021. Well, thank you all for joining me here for our weekly time of exploring nature-centered folklore, connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space, and expressing whatever inspired visions you get from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing, art, crafts, performance, and your problem solving. Now, this afternoon, it's Sensing Herbs is our theme. And it's all about not being clinical, but really we're all herbalists. So this is a herb session without herb books. And it's a quest to learn a bit from herb plants through our senses and our past use memories. And today our guest, a herbalist, she's not backstage yet, so I hope she can sign on okay, is Lisa Guynan of Irish Herbal Roots. And Lisa, she has a beautiful approach to living, and she works with plants, and it's an honor that she's going to be with us this afternoon. So I hope that she does manage to get here okay. Now, as I say, these Nature Folklore sessions, as usual, bring this up, is brought to you by you lovely subscribers. And that's what keeps us afloat. And it's because I'm here today. So thank you very much, all of you do help as subscribers. And that's the subscriber link there. So I always put up this way. So any help, euro, pound, dollar a month, it helps to pay the subscriptions. I got paid to be on there. So thank you very much for your support. Most of you watched today have already joined us. So let's see who has joined us today for Century Herbs. There we go. We got Gary's here. Great. Hello, Gary. Hi, everybody. And Marco Blanchi through the YouTube. Lovely to have you here. Donna Johnson is aboard. Good morning to you from New Mexico. Cattle, lovely to have you aboard. Good afternoon to you as well. Through the YouTube, we got Little Wings. Good afternoon from Manchester, England there. And of course, Alan's here from Kildare. So that's wonderful. Thank you for joining in already. And it gets us a wee bit started, doesn't it? So to explain what sensing is, I'll tell you what got me onto this was a kind of a dog story. And one thing that dogs and cats cannot do is go to a library and pick up a book. And they can't just sort of look through the book and find a herb to choose to find out what herb is good for whatever ailment the dog or cat or horse or donkey has. And I was at a herb workshop, and there were several herbs on a table. The facilitator put them there, and the people present were, here comes Lisa. Lisa's backstage. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for being here. Anyway, the people at this workshop, they were invited to approach the table, pick a herb, and they were asked to say what they felt about their chosen herb. So one by one, the people got their favorite herb from the table, and they recited what really sounded more like text memorized from herb books. And the facilitator said, no, let's stop here. And she reminded us that she had asked us to describe how we feel about each herb and how to feel about each plant. So she got us to try again and imagine that we were like a cat or a dog, or a horse, of course, or a donkey, and somehow speak our language of interpretation as if we can't read a book. So also what I want to focus on during this session is the importance and value of sensing the herbs, sensing the plants around us, and discovering what our relationships are with these plants. rather than order some exotic fancy name plant or formula from the Amazon forest or some remote Pacific island, or something similar wrapped up in a capsule somewhere. What is around us that we can actually sense? Because there's always something around us that can help us in any situation. On Facebook, I was talking about elder in some thread, and elderberry harvesting is just about happening with some people right now. And there was a fairly assertive woman in that group, and she was commenting about how so much better the elder leaves were than the berries. Now, the thing is, eating elder leaves is not like eating cabbage. There's severe caution needed if you do mess around with the leaves. But here's a test that you can try really with any leaf if you're not familiar with it. I should obviously I better put some sort of government warning on this, but what I actually do is bite a leaf with the teeth, keep the tongue well away, and sense what's happened the moment you make that little bite. And if there's a burning or tingling sensation, then you know, throw it away, it's toxic. You can actually feel the plant is toxic. Now, you can prepare elder leaves, and they do have benefits, but it's not something really that we can actually do from reading a book or even a YouTube. And this is an indication, you know, you could have your parents or grandparents, uncles, aunts show you how to prepare the elder leaves, because that's been passed down to them. And that's something that's what's been dying away, is plant wisdom within our families, within ourselves. Because there was a time, certainly when I was a child, there was a lot of it with the relations. You learned your plant law from your elders, from the mothers, grandmothers, uncles, aunts, great aunts. And these, to me, I feel are essential apprenticeships that are fading away. They're fizzling away. And if you've not had that upbringing, it's very difficult to find an alternative apprenticeship, I feel, to actually find a facilitator who at least has had that kind of generation passed down upbringing, or served very close apprenticeship that gets them into that vibe, I suppose, into that realm. Now, with someone from that upbringing, where the skills and the craft was sent down through the generations, I don't think plant law really is something that universities can handle. Well, I did research and development, but that's sort of a different thing altogether. I didn't go straight into research and development. I got the interest from family interest. So really, I feel that with plants, it's an inherited life craft. So what really happens is you do not learn what's good about a plant from your mother, father, or grandfather. What is precious is the presence, your presence amongst these elders, with these plant mentors, especially if you're a child, because you're not just hearing about the plant, you're there, you're watching the preparation, you're joining in the preparation, and you become involved in the whole process. And that's what you end up duplicating. That's apprenticeship to me. And that, I feel, is what's safe. Because really, if you think about it, if it wasn't safe, then you wouldn't have even been born, would you? Because something would have gone wrong. So really, the stuff that you've been showed by your parents, grandparents, it hasn't harmed anybody, really. So let's see what you've got to say so far about that. A little bit I've had to say there. It's probably people still arriving, isn't it? There's Shell here. Hello, Shell. Good day. Plant wisdom is so important to pass along. And someone saying hello, Siobhan, a little wing there. Oh, yeah, there's Siobhan there that she's saying hello to. Siobhan Glancy, watching from Roscommon. Goodness, we've really got a YouTube presence today, which is very nice. And there's Edward from Sligo. He's on Facebook. So thank you, YouTubers, because I was remarking last week, we had no YouTubers on board last week, and now we're really getting here. We got Marco here from Cork. I might not have said hello to you before, but hello, and it's great that you're all here. Thanks very much. Anyway, with myself, as I say, I did research and development, and I was actually, I ended up focusing. I'd done herbs quite a bit before, but when I got to university, I actually got into a project with stevia, and I got headhunted, and I got dragged over to some research and development in Utah, in the USA, which was fascinating at the time. But the head of all of this was a Chinese man. And though it was a sort of clinical research and development, through him, I got to hear some fantastic stories on the Chinese approach to health and medicine. And he even had some old scriptures himself. He even had a recipe he was dying to try out and get us to research. It was actually on jade. Jade stone had been carved out. So, of course, he told me about Shenong, the divine farmer and father of medicine. And I better get to the pictures because this is a picture time. And I have a bit of Shenong here. Let's line up the photos better. And here he is. So there he was. And he's back again. I don't know what the bumps on. I never got the explanation for the bumps, but he had some sort of bumps, some horn. But he's said to be the father of medicine, especially in the Chinese. But there's different dates applied to him for being born and living. Some storytellers tell these from around 3000 BC. Some go back to 10,000 BC, some to 20,000 BC. But before there was Shenong, there was a myth character as well called Fu Tsi, TSI, Fu Tsi. Futsi, and he was the yin and yang. He was he brought forward the concept of the yin and yang, of balance, and of course plants for balance. And so far, it's been very hard for me to actually find a decent yin and yang graph. I'm not really happy with this one because people seem to be biased about what yin and yang are. I've got something up that let's knock this off first. So anyway, you've probably got your own thoughts on that, and certainly share them in the comments if you have, as far as the yin and yang. But stories tell of yin and yang going way back, even as far as 50,000 years. Well, is the most, but 5,000 years, 10,000 years, even 30, 40, 50,000 years. But the Chinese didn't have a date system. They didn't keep records according to dates. We're so familiar with the Gregorian, the Gregorian date system that we think that Gregorian date system went way back thousands of years. But the Chinese didn't have an annual dating system as such. So storytellers, they have to make up the dates. And the older the story, of course, the wiser it seems that the storyteller is to the listener. But there's actually a Shenong tribe. And the bumps on his head actually get a lot bigger. There you go. He gets horns now. He gets real horns in the region. That's to the west of what's now China. So they're around. And but at the time of Shenong, there was no China, but it was a huge landscape of clans. Just like in ancient Ireland, there was an island of clans. It wasn't an island as such. And Shenong is also told of being an inventor of the plow. Yeah, so he kind of kicked off the agriculture. And there's an old lovely graphic of a plow, Chinese plow. The hoe, the axe, and the adze. I love using adze for no-dig gardening. It's great for no-dig agriculture. And as I say, Shenong, in later years with clans, he grew horns. There's another statue there with him with the horns. And, you know, I did with First Harvest. Remember, I did the 2 weeks with the Croms, the Crom Crack and the Crom Dove through the First Harvest sessions. So do you see a familiarity there? Those Croms being also very yin and yang as the way I presented them. And so there you go. You got this character. It is almost like a Crom Dove figure anyway. Crom Dove is shown as a human-like figure with horns, almost a bit like the Minotaur in Crete, or it's just a bull. As I explained, it's the end of the sort of Taurus summer season. So I just think it's fascinating, the symbolisms of the past, even though this is supposed to be about sensing herbs. Now, that Shenong imagery, it seems to have traveled through the Persians, the Minoans, up through the Balkans and the Baltic cultures, as I've been explaining in previous weeks, before really something similar got over to Ireland. But today, I'd like to refer to Shennong as the original herbalist and farmer. And of course, I don't think the man really existed as such. It's just a myth. It's a guiding myth, a bit like we have the she here that can be guiding in what we do, or the goddesses, and some people have their Christ heart. So that Shennong, I believe, is a mythology that kind of explains, it's that unseen explanation behind the plants and also behind the farming. But it's a good starting point. He's a good starting point. I'm sorry it's a man. Good starting point for sensing herbs this session. And the stories tell that Shennong could go, he went invisible. And the reason he went invisible through the storytellers is so that he could eat a plant and watch it go through his body and see the actual effects. He'd make a plant into a tea or a decoction, watch it travel through his body, and he could watch the effects on the different parts of his body because he was invisible and he could look inside. But the one thing that Shennong couldn't do is actually scribe a catalogue. He couldn't do like I did in research and development and record everything. So there was a lot of memory with what was nutritious and what would heal. And he's really, by doing so, this is an illustration of sensing herbs, isn't it? Because he looked, touched, smelled, listened to, and attempted to taste plants. And now how Shennong really, I suppose, if he had the catalogue in some way, I suppose, through memory, experience. How he did this is not known. It's really an open license for storytellers. Now, the Persians were record keepers, and they took a lot of the Chinese wisdom and recorded it. And there was another story that Shennong he always had an antidote tea that he prepared. And there's a lovely artist illustration with him with some of his tea. There we go. He's brewing up something there anyway. And this tea, it would rescue him each time that he poisoned himself. And as I said, because he was invisible at the moment, he saw a problem. Down goes that antidote tea. But alas, the story tells that there was a yellow flower. No one knows what it is, but it was a yellow flower that actually destroyed his intestines before he could get that antidote tea down him. So that was the end of Shennong. And I've talked about medieval scribing in Ireland, as I do in previous sessions. Now, in China, they were doing this kind of scribing hundreds of years before Ireland was. There's a lovely one there, and they even got a plant on board. And this one here is fascinating. Just get myself a drink. This is the Shennong clear the throat. This is the Shennong Ben Kaoxing, and recognizing symbolisms there. 365 recipes are in that, and that was scribed about 200 AD. And for some of you, I say 365 remedies, and it may automatically remind you of the story of Miach, the son of Dion sect in Irish folklore. And for some of you, that may also remind you that Miach was killed by his father out of rage because he was a terrific surgeon. I'm not going to go into the full story, but it was jealousy. And he had a sister, Ermid. And Ermid in Ireland is very familiar with association with herbs. And it said that she buried Miach. And where she buried Miach, 365 herbs came up in the shape of his body where he was buried. And so she was so alarmed, and Ermid trying to duplicate all of this by laying out her cloak and by putting the plants out in the order they were as they came up out of Miach's burial there. But of course, jealous father came along, grabbed the cloak, herbs went everywhere. And because she hadn't had chance memorizing, she was determined that the herbalists from there on would try to recreate that 365. And in some ways, that's why herbalists are always practicing, trying to get it right to what Ermid had discovered. So Ermid in Ireland and elsewhere is the goddess of the practice of herbalism from then on. Now, it's interesting that my Chinese herbal boss from many years ago also told me a story of the buried Shenong. And the same thing happened to him when he was buried. 365 herbs came from his body too. And I hadn't even told him a word about Hermit. And he wasn't really familiar with Ireland anyway. So there you go. The Chinese have it. So there must be variations of that story that are around the world. Now, with the 365 Chinese herbs, there are 120 noble herbs, if I can kind of get a picture up, because this includes ginseng, hemp, cannabis, licorice, and there we go. There we have a Chinese hemp collector there, and the euphobia, which good for rubber, and of course there's some advances there to help with diabetes. Then you got the 120 therapeutic herbs that could be toxic. And surprisingly, ginger's in there and cucumbers on the list. That's the next 120. And then there's 125 violent reaction herbs, as they say. And we even have rhubarb in there, peaches, avocados in there, surprisingly. And of course, someone had to do a modern translation of that. This is the modern translation of the Shenmeng Ben Kaosheng catalog, which has those 365 herbs in them. Now, the Chinese, they didn't have any concept of copyright or scribed ownership. They didn't have to do stuff like Columbkill did with the fuss that happened that became the Battle of the Books. Anything that anybody wrote, it was for anybody. And the writing was not a possession, it was for sharing. And that was the Chinese way. And I think it's because they understood that, divided people into the educated and the uneducated. So that would have been a concern for a while. But today we may have university graduated people and we have apprenticed people. Oh, that's how it used to be anyway. But somehow we seem to be doctrined into having more faith in the university people than the apprentice people. Do you feel that's happened? I feel the hands-on apprentice people should be the true herbal practitioners. I suppose what it is, scribing brought about order, but it brought about doctrines, rules, and stuff that we must follow, stuff that we must do as we're told. We must prescribe what is written down in the book. Otherwise, you're not going to get well. I think we've got to a bit of that, unfortunately. Now, like the legend of Shenong, I believe it's very important for herbalists to experience the herbs that they recommend to others. So, I did put it out there last week. What's your experience with herb? Could you send me some photos and a video? I didn't get any, but if you've got any, put them on for next week, because we got the we got another social event next week, which is the Harvest Home, so we can continue some of this as well. But this is the thing. What have you experienced within plants, not what you've read in the book? The folklore legends of Shenong, they serve a range of plants that are safe to work with. Think of those first 120 plants, the noble herbs. Very safe, very nutritious, and a terrific starter to work with. So we do not need to know botanical names of the plants. We recognize them, experience them, and we may give a plant a name. I certainly know my great uncles, they actually made up names for plants, and that gets passed down, of course. And that's how we get folk names for plants, rather than the materia medica. We actually have them. And there's one example, heartsease. I know from Scotland, heartsease is hawthorne. It's the horse. But in Ireland, it's a totally different plant. So those who only study herbs by name and describe properties, I think they're taking chances if that's all they've got, if that's what they're recommending to people, because they're not knowing at a deep level what they're prescribing, what they're recommending. They're not really understanding plants, the basics of taste, nature, effects of the herbs. Saying a herb is in a book by a famous person, I think the important thing and message today, that's not good enough. And that's the main cause of today's theme, which is sensing herbs. So that's my long run around with that. I hope that was interesting. Let's see what you've got to say on that. And Little Wing, I think we said hello. We're getting some. Siobhan watching for us. There we go. Little Wing puts Big Farmer should. Well, of course, Big Farmer's a new business, and our lovely guest Lisa, I'm sure he's going to be talking quite a bit about that. And then Sherry there. Plant wisdom, so important to pass along. It certainly is. We're getting a lot of hellos still. Flat Earth British Convention in Birmingham, September the 10th. Goodness me. A lot of people saying hello to Little Wing here. Very popular. Sharon's here. Good morning. Be back soon. I hope you are. And Claire's with us. There's lovely Claire. Wonderful to join. So much wisdom and inspiration. So thank you. All saying the hellos, make comments about the herbs as you go. Anyways, Lisa, she's been patiently waiting in the background. Invited her as a guest, our herbalist this year, Lisa Guynan, and I'm pleased she can join us. I invited Lisa after looking at her website. Was looking for herbalists for today, but either I read and it seemed they were too clinical, one really did relate to me as being sensing herbs, and then those that did seem very applied to sensing herbs, either they're doing something today. And I think the funniest one, a couple of responses was, they said, how can I do sensing herbs online? It's not a subject for online, it's for being present. Yeah, these people have got YouTube videos, but there again, that's the way we go, isn't it? But Lisa, to me, I looked at her website, she was just the perfect match. And I was so pleased that she can join us. And here's part of Lisa's introduction that's on her website. Until the mid-1900s, sorry, I haven't got the page in front of you. I should have the page in front of you, but I haven't got the photo of it. But she says, until the mid-1900s, harvesting wild herbs and plants for medicine was an essential part of life. Shown to them by their mother or grandfather in far-off dreamy days when people worked closely with the land and appreciated a simple life. Now, almost 100 years later, and 100 years wiser, many people are beginning to reflect and seriously question whether, in fact, we acted a little too hastily when we dropped our inherited wisdom of plant knowledge and our traditional skills and medicine making. So in hindsight, it's becoming apparent that there's been a consistent void, an empty space in the heart of culture, a space once shared by both man and nature that resulted in healing. Maybe we need to revisit this place and see exactly what it was that we have let go of. Do you know, I should have just said that all along, shouldn't I, instead of all the stuff I said. Anyway, let's get Lisa on board here and say hello. Lisa, I better get my earplugs on. Otherwise, she'll be saying hello and we'll have a mime session. So there we go. Excuse me for a second as I get some more tech in my ears. And let's see how you are. Hello, Lisa. How are you doing? Let's have a sound check here. Oh, that's lovely. You sound good. You look good. You're absolutely fantastic. So it's thank you for bringing on board. You sent me a wonderful set of photos. So we're going to have a great session. It's a lovely way to go about what you do. But I gave an introduction for your website. If you could give a couple of minutes about how you sense herbs, because I know you take people out and about to sense herbs out in the wilds, which is a fabulous thing to do.
Yeah, well, I love what you're saying, John, about, having the experience of herbs and using our senses, because that's something very close to my heart. And I did do training from 2003 to 2008 in Dublin. I did all the training. And, there was one afternoon when we went out to the botanical gardens and we looked at a few plants. But apart from that, it was all out of books, and look, that is valuable to a degree in its own way. And I'm glad that I did it. But actually, it was only, the following years that I started really getting out there, discovering the plants, growing the plants, And actually I found, because I do grow quite a lot of herbs now at the moment, and I watch them growing, and actually a lot of them I don't even harvest, because I just love to watch the full cycle of the plant. The first shoot coming up, I watch how it grows, I observe how it grows. I just love being around the plants. Like, each plant is different, and I find that I, learn things almost not through my mind, through my body, just from watching how they grow and how they do it. And I love then seeing the flowers coming up, the bees coming on, pollinating them, the seeds. And, I've also come to love even that returning part, where they kind of die away and go back into the ground. That can be really nice in its own way as well. And, also I found, because I am a herbal practitioner, so I do see clients on an ongoing basis, and I treat them with herbal medicine. But I found that the more time, when I started really spending the time with the plants, that the herbs I was using started to work much better, even though they'd be the same herbs. So there's some other way of relating to plants, like you're saying, it's almost like the information, we get with the mind. It's great, that can take us so far, but there's a whole other world, other way of relating with plants. And I believe tapping into the healing power of plants that you don't get through the mind. It's in the body, and it's being in relationship with the plants and the herbs and observing them. And yeah, I haven't done so many walks and workshops over the last, since COVID started. But up till then, I've done loads of walks and workshops. So I take people out quite often into the Burren, or sometimes up where I live. And like that, we just go through the hedgerows, see what's there, smell them, feel them, touch them. And then I would do workshops where I take a group of people, and we start to make these herbs into medicines, and people go home with, medicines that they've made, and, just that comfort in, knowing that often my job is just to take the fear out of people. People can have a lot of fear that, the plant's going to kill them, or they're doing the wrong thing. It's like we've lost that confidence that we would have had, as you're saying, when it's passed on generation to generation, we grow up with it, we're confident in it. But there's been this gap where we've disconnected. So it's like people don't have that confidence in the plants. They're too afraid of them. And a lot of the time my job is to really help build their confidence and, inspire them, and that it is okay there's certain things you've got to look out for, you cover them first, and it is okay to go out there and forage your herbs and use them for medicine.
I think that's lovely that you brought up that about confidence, because I thought about it sometimes. It's great you brought that to the front, how people, they avoid the plants now because in a way they feel, oh, that might upset the doctor. And so now, not having had their parents or grandparents show them, everything's so foreign and dangerous, because I suppose in the media we're only hearing about what's dangerous. We don't hear what's beneficial, as it is with all media stuff. Now, I love the way you, we said, how can I show what you do? And you said, let's have some photographs. So you sent me a pile of photographs, and it's lovely how you catalogue them according to the various senses. So I wonder if we can make a start on that one. And I was intrigued by this first one. You really bowled me over with this first one. So I'll bring it up and you can say something. There you go. What is that?
So I photograph plants all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do. And pretty much all of them are taken down in County Clare, where I live. But this one was actually when I was in New York City. And this is actually a Ginkgo Biloba tree. It's quite a big tree. And I've never seen them just in the middle of the city like this, but New York has them. And this is, there's an old thing in herbal medicine, the doctrine of signatures. And what that is that it says how a herb looks can often give you clues to what it is used for. So in that, if you just want to put the leaf up there for a moment again, John. So Ginkgo biloba is a really good medicine for the brain. It increases the circulation to the brain. And if you look at the leaf, it's like one of the hemispheres of the brain. So that would be a real typical and a very good example of the leaf showing us what it is used for. So that's Ginkgo biloba. It's really good for, memory, concentration, and, degenerative brain illness as well.
And of course, I better point out that the first sense we're going at is sight. So it's what you actually pick up from your sense of sight when you see something. So you see that massive great leaf, and how many people would think of a brain with that? That's an interesting thing. Anyway, we'll go to the next one here.
Yeah. So this one here is Old Man's Beard.
Yes.
And, what I like about this one is that I worked this one out myself. Now, I'm not saying other people haven't worked it out or anything like that, but I didn't read about this. I had read about the ginkgo. But this one, there's a lot of Old Man's Beard. It's a lichen, and there's a lot of it growing in the burren. And, I was down one kind of winter's evening, and I was looking at it, and I was touching it, and I was looking at the strands of it there, and I was thinking, God, that looks really like the lungs. You can see like the bronchi and the bronchioles, the way they stretch out there. And also, if you pull those strands, they're stretchy, like the muscles of the bronchioles. And, I was thinking, that's so interesting. And this herb would be traditionally used, as a lung tonic, and also for infection in the lung. And it's found to be a really good antibiotic for certain bacteria in the lung. So I was really delighted with this, that I could see it and touch it and make that association myself. So that blew me away.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's really sensing herbs as such. And now this is definitely a favorite with our viewers, I know. And in the USA, they're already harvesting theirs.
Yeah. This one, Hawthorne, sometimes it's just a lot more simple. They'd say, okay, red berries, red is the color of the heart. And Hawthorne is a great heart tonic and also good for the circulatory system. So that would be the association there with the Hawthorne.
Yes, certainly. And even with myself years ago, I thought I was having a heart attack. And Claire, she's watching now. She was quite shocked when I said, "Oh, Claire, I'm not feeling very well." And I shot outside. And this was actually in May time when the blossoms were out. But there were still some berries hanging from the year before, surprisingly. So I quickly grabbed what I could, berries and the flowers, and I made a tea and drank it. And actually, I went immediately paralyzed. I thought, oh, goodness me, I've got this wrong. Anyway, as soon as I got into A&E, I was, it was declared I'd had a stroke. And I couldn't move a muscle. I could speak. And I said to the doctor, I said, oh, I did a stupid thing. I told him about the Hawthorne tea. And he laughed at me. And I thought, well, this is not some laughing matter. And he said to me, he said, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but he said, by drinking that tea, it meant if you hadn't drunk that tea, you probably wouldn't have been speaking to me now, which I think he was saying it saved my speech. So I have great respect for the Hawthorne. Anyway, I'll move on. There we go.
Okay, so this is, thanks, John. This is dandelion, and often the color yellow because it be associated with bile, and bile, moves through the liver. So that color yellow is often associated with plants that would be good for the liver and gallbladder. You can see there the dandelion, it is good for the liver. You've herbs like chelidonium, good for the liver. And even you've certain roots like, say, turmeric, golden seal, yellow dock, they all have like a yellow root. And all of these herbs would be good for liver and gallbladder.
Yeah, fascinating with dandelion because way back, it was 1990. The whole craze as it is at the moment with the farmer, of course, is made famous with Pfizer, the craze of amplifying the production of T cells. Well, that's, as I understood it, got going 1988 and 1990. So some of the research and development that I was involved with is how do we get the body going, producing T cells? And we were looking at it from a plant angle. And dandelion was interestingly one of our important ingredients. So very important for that. Now, this is a curious one to me. Now, does this grow in the burren?
Well, this is chamomile is the one underneath, and then it's
I thought it was poppy. I was looking at the Californian poppy there.
Yeah, it's the both of them. I put the two of them in there on purpose.
Brilliant.
The Californian poppy, I deliberately grow that. I've never seen it growing wild around here. But the reason I put them in there is that quite often the herbs that are good for the nervous system are flowers. And, it's often, herbs that have to put on a showy flower. They're wanting to attract bees for pollination, and they want to look pretty and smell pretty. And often those herbs are the ones that, help relax our nervous system. So there we've the Californian poppy, good for the nervous system, helpful for sleep. Chamomile, good for the nervous system. We've herbs like lavender, nervous system, sleep. Rose, lovely emotional relaxant. There's plenty more, but that's what I can think of right now. So, yeah.
Oh, gorgeous. And the last one in the site, one of my favorites, very useful.
Yeah, so this is burdock. And, unlike the showy plants, you've these wind pollinated ones like burdock and yellow dock. And they don't have those really pretty flowers, but often their medicine is in the root. And, the roots are, again, really good for like the liver and cleansing. I often think like the roots are underground, and whereas the flowers at the top of the plant, good for the brain and nervous system. And these ones, most of the medicine is down underground in the roots, which is like good for, clearing out our bowels and our liver and elimination.
Yeah, it's interesting. Of course, as a child, I wasn't a big fan of fizzy drinks. I couldn't stand Coca-Cola and stuff like that. But the one thing I would drink, other than the ginger ale, the real ginger ale, is the dandelion along with the burdock. So interesting. Put the two roots together. Yes, I can see you've got the liver combination. But what surprises me is the idea of sight. Because another combination I do is the burdock with the marshmallow flowers root is a great standby for a real phlegmy cough. But the thing looking at that, the last thing I would think of is help for the cough, or even a help for the digestion. So that's intriguing. What does seeing that actually tell you? That's fascinating. The burdock, in a way, you were saying about confidence. I think people who don't know plants, they see burdock, and that seems to look like danger to me if you didn't know what it was.
Yeah, and it's such a great herb, and so easy to use.
So it's a wonder how people discovered the benefits of that, as we'll never know. Anyway, we're going on to touch, and we're going on to another favorite here, starting off with a touch.
Okay, so this is mullein. So you can even see in the photograph how soft the leaves are. And when you touch them, they're just so velvety and soft. And, marshmallow's another one, marshmallow leaf and root. And these plants contain a thing called mucilage, which is a lovely soothing. It's how the plant looks. It's like soothing, softening, and it has an anti-inflammatory effect on the tissues of the body. And you can just imagine, that soothing gel-like substance, the way it just adheres to the mucous membranes and coats them and allows them to heal. So you can see that correlation from the herb to the body.
And then we get a better vision.
Yeah, that's just to show what the plant looks like then when it bolts up and flowers.
It's a beautiful plant. It's lovely. I don't have any here, unfortunately. I'm going to have to remedy that one. And then
seeds, John.
All right.
Okay, so this is Herb Robert, and it's
Yeah.
just showing an example of a plant on the other end of the extreme that has a lot of tannins in it. And
Yeah.
tannins, it's the opposite. They dry and tighten and tone. And you can see it in the plant. There's no juicy, stems or leaves. It's very dry looking. And that also has, tannins have great wound healing capacity in the body because they tighten and tone the tissues. So, it's a wound healer on the outside and also on the inside on the digestive tract. So you can see that just by touching it, sight as well, and by touching it, it's that dryness. The plant is dry to touch.
And the lovely thing is, it's so common. So if you do have a problem, easy to reach for, if you know what it is. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then on the touch, again, now this is interesting.
Okay, so this is a field thistle.
Yes.
So with this one, all the thistles are edible, so you can't go wrong with them. But the thing, because a lot of plants, they'll, create like a bitter substance in it, or even the tannins that like puckering taste in the mouth. The plants are trying to put, animals off eating them. It's like a survival that they won't taste good. But because thistles have these spikes, that is their protection. And, that means that for taste, they've quite a nice taste, as wild plants go, they've quite a neutral, nutty kind of flavor. And they're nutritional and cleansing in the body. And the same would go for, say, nettles. They have their sting, and that's their defense. But, nettles, they're like a vegetable. They taste quite good. So, when you see these thorns and stingers, you can get a fair idea that this could be, cleansing, nutritional, and quite nice to taste.
And that's interesting. Again, linked to that whole confidence thing of don't be scared of the thistles. Think of what is that telling you as well. Because the thing I find fascinating that I was shown, and it was quite a shock, is that the best thing for a nettle sting, if you've got the gloves, is squeeze some juice from the nettle and rub that on the nettle sting, and that will sort it out quicker than the burdock, which is a bit of a myth anyway. But so, yeah, fascinating. So we're on to smell now, and people certainly love to smell plants, don't they? Please get your comments in and questions in here for Lisa. There's a lot of people watching, but they're being very quiet. There's certainly compliments about how this is very informative. But anyway, we're on to smell, and I love this one.
Yeah, so this is catmint.
Yes.
And, all these plants, I have a few more after it. They've got this lovely aromatic smell. I mean, we all know this. There's like the mint, chamomile, oregano, marjoram, thyme. They've this beautiful smell. And, that smell is the volatile oils, or essential oils. It's where our essential oils come from when we get them in the little bottles. And herbs that have this lovely fragrance, number one, the plants, they'll make this fragrance to attract bees, but also it's like antibacterial, antifungal. So if the plant is under attack from, say, a fungus or a bacteria in the environment, they create these compounds to protect the plant. And, these volatile oils, when you get that smell, there's a couple of things. Number one, they're usually good for the immune system. So it's like the way the plant has used them for itself to keep off bacteria and virus. That translates to us as well. They're often good for colds and flus, bacterial and viral infections. And the other thing, they tend to be good for the digestion. So again, it's all mint, chamomile, marjoram, oregano. They help break down food, and also are good in the digestive system for, say, candida or, an overgrowth of the bacteria in the gut. So, so you get that smell and you think, immunity, coughs and colds and flus and help digestion. And quite often they've a positive effect on the nervous system as well.
Goodness, and when you say candida, a lot of people, if they're dealing with thrush or with yeast, it's just roughly in the same area. Questions are coming in, and let's see, Catmint and melon grow well here. Donna was saying something about because she's got the thistles there, about being edible. I certainly like the heads in salads sometimes. Any suggestions from yourself, Lisa, on eating them?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I do. I don't actually eat them, but what I love to do is, I'll go and collect them, and, I put them into cold water, filtered cold water. You don't want any chlorine in it. I just pick them with a glove. I put them into, like I have these jars, and I submerge it in cold water, and I just leave it for 24 hours, maybe a little bit after that. And what happens is, you've all the natural yeasts and bacteria that would be on the plant that are good for our gut as well. And when it's left steeped in the water for a period of time, they start to grow. So it starts to ferment, basically. So you start to create this plant probiotic, which is really good for the gut. And, then I keep it cold so that I keep that bacteria alive. And, when you leave it to infuse in the cold water, you also get all the nutrients will infuse into the water. And it's actually a beautiful drink. And for me, when I drink that, it's like a nature tonic. I can actually feel like I'm drinking nature herself. It's beautiful. And I actually feel my cells, that my body's really absorbing the water, the cold infusion, much better than it does normal water. And it's nice. Like I said, it doesn't have that bitter taste. It's not too astringent. So it's a pleasant taste. And, if you leave it too long, it will go a bit too fermented because the sugars get digested and, the taste is not so good. Like I'm always, say to people, the taste, ferment it a little bit, but have it to a stage where you enjoy it. I'm not really into this, throw it down, and not when it can be nice.
Claire was saying it's mesmerizing stuff. It's fascinating. So to move on with the smells now, the next one. This is lovely too. And Claire will be able to relate to this a bit.
Yeah, thank you, Claire, for that comment. So this is thyme. So this is just showing, another plant with the volatile oils, also really good for coughs, colds and flu and digestion. This is wild thyme in the Burren, actually. Yeah,
that's absolutely a lovely photo of it. Wonderful. Just get this comment lifted. And that's a lovely one. And of course, we're back here.
Yeah, and again, this is just showing another plant with the volatile oils. Yeah. And
this is popular.
Okay.
Boy, so that's a good abundance there.
Yeah, this is just up the road from me, actually. Yeah. This is meadowsweet. So we're on smell. So meadowsweet, it's got salicylic acid in it. So it's like the plant aspirin, before they made aspirin, they seen it in the plants, and meadowsweet was one of those plants. And if you take some of the meadowsweet, I think, is there a photograph after it, maybe of a close-up that I could show you?
There you go.
Yeah. So see the part that hasn't quite come into bloom. I mean, you'll smell it in all of it, but particularly before the flowers open, those little round buds there. If you crush them between your fingers and you smell them, like it smells like a pharmacy. You can smell the salicylic acid in them. It's that real medical smell. So that's definitely one that's worth. They're still out now, and you'll see some of them still with the haven't opened, and just put them between your fingers and you'll smell the medicine in them. It's very strong. Brilliant.
Now, of course, what we've done, you've probably got your own ideas. those of you watching, what plants have you got around you, either wild or in your garden? That really gives you a sensation. It makes you to stop and pause, either from sight. We've talked with touch when you feel them, the sense of reaction, a sense of calm and what that does. And the smell. What plants have you got around you? Do share with those that give an incredible smell, and bring your comments for that. That'd be lovely to see. But we're going into taste now, and we're back to our old friend here again with taste.
Okay. So again, the mucilage that we were talking about that gives it that lovely soft, watery feeling. You know, when you drink that as a tea, again, you can taste that it's watery. So you feel it moistening the tissues. You could taste that as you drink it. And again, you know, it's going to be that mucilage, anti-inflammatory, really great for your digestive system.
And we're back to
and the lungs as well.
Of course, that's why people are looking. That's why it's popular. People looking to clear their lungs, clear the phlegm from them. And although, if you think about it, you know, one of the things that Billy Connolly was saying is how you can tell people from Scotland and Ireland is they talk with phlegm. So grow more million, they lose the accent. Anyway, we'll move on to the herb Robert and taste as well, and it's quite sweet.
Yeah. So again, you've the taste, because there's a lot of tannins. Herbs with tannins, they're going to have that astringent. So that's like a drying, puckering taste in your mouth, you know. And even if you're not familiar with what that is, if you think of, like, say, an unripe pear, and you take a bite of it and it's, you know, it's just really dry and puckering in your mouth, that's because it's astringent. And then when it becomes ripe, it loses that astringency and becomes sweet. So that puckering taste in herbs, again, you know, it's going to tighten and tone the tissues, which is great for, like, diarrhea and, you know, again, any inflammation down the digestive tract. A great wound healer to tighten and tone the wound.
And though it's a bit of a crossover as seasons go, I like, if you can, mixing that with the going brain dead on it, heather flowers. Because I love heather tea anyway, but I always find you have to add something, and of course the herb Robert's a good additive to that. I'm intrigued about this one that you put in.
Yeah, so this isn't one of my own photographs, all the others are. This is oat straw. And, you know, in terms of tastes of herbs, things like oat straw, you know, like the thistles would be like that as well. It's very neutral, and it would be considered to be sweet, you know, but it's like in the food world, rice would be considered to be sweet. We're not talking about sugar that we're used to. So it's that kind of neutral, nutty taste. It's considered to be sweet. And herbs that would have this, they tend to be like nourishing tonics, you know, like the oat straw would have plenty of B vitamins in it, and it's great for, like, restoring the nervous system. So you're, like, building yourself up, tonifying, tonic, restoration, building. So herbs with that sweet, you know, ashwagandha is another one. It's not a native herb, but, you know, it's got that sweetness, and they're good for restoring the nervous system and building the body up.
All right, moving along. And
again, so we're on to the taste. Yeah, so then we have, like, the bitter taste.
Yes.
Yeah, so this would be yellow dock. You know, I harvest this and I use the root, and this would be one of our bitter herbs. And when you get that bitter taste, you know the bitter is going to be good for the liver, the gallbladder, you know, and the bowels. It just elimination, gets everything moving, gets elimination moving. So again, just from that taste, you can gather that information.
And similar again.
Yeah, that's just a close-up of the root. And again, you can see the yellow color of the root.
Yeah.
You know, good for the liver and the bowel. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, looking at that, you can, I suppose, relate to even how the burdock is, although burdock's a bit darker. And even horseradish, when you pick it up, although it's not as thin as that, and it kind of I find that relates. But on the taste, you go on to another very popular one. There we go.
Yeah, so we've lavender. So again, it's that aromatic taste. You can taste it, you know, like with the marjoram and oregano and all those other plants, they have that. It's the volatile oils in them. It gives it that aromatic taste. And again, you will know, oh, good for your digestion, good for colds and flu. You know, they're good for other things as well, but you can tell those, you know, you could start off there and be pretty sure that they're going to be good for those things.
And with all the plants and the roots that you've shown, the final picture that you sent me kind of changes all that around.
Well, John, the only reason I put this one in was because I was looking for warming, spicy herbs like ginger, horseradish, cinnamon. But, you know, I lost the whole library of my photographs there recently because of the drive that they were on. And I went to take up a ginger photograph and I didn't have one. And I didn't have a horseradish. So I just threw this up because this is a combination of all of those things infused in apple cider vinegar, and it's called a fire tonic. And basically, you know, it's hot, it's spicy, so it's going to be good for your circulation. If you think about it, it's bringing heat into the body, fire into the body, which is going to increase your circulation, and which can be really helpful for colds and flus, because really we want to get the body temperature up to burn off and throw off the virus, you know. And a lot of the, you know, those herbs as well, the ginger and cinnamon and cloves and horseradish would also have the volatile oils. If you think about it, they have that smell, you know. When I'm cooking these, I do a cough bottle as well, and I cook them up, and the aroma in the house is beautiful. So they will have both that heating capacity and, you know, the volatile oils that will be good for colds and flu.
Now, I know some of you here that you have your own recipes for fire tonic, so please put your suggestions of how you vary that. And especially, of course, if you live in different areas, you might be privileged that you're growing turmeric and ginger and all these wonderful things that we have a struggle with. Horseradish is our easy thing here in Ireland as far as that goes. But yes, fire up questions with Lisa. It's lovely how you took us through the groupings of sample plants, through our senses, rather than none of the listening ones. But of course, we need a bit of wind for that. So that's been lovely for that. So get your questions up and talk about your own experiences with sensing plants. You're being very quiet at the moment. And have I missed someone? Anybody? I know, especially Donna, because we haven't got Sherry on board. If Sherry, one of our regulars, it's just she's still celebrating her birthday, so she was with relations. But I wouldn't be surprised there'll be some comments flying from her, even a few photographs. And well, last year, yes, I'll come back to you in a moment, Lisa. That was wonderful, because last year when excuse me. When Gina McGarry was our guest herbalist, what I did, if anybody was here to see that, I did an experiment, and I had another camera, and I went around the herb spiral labyrinth. I talked about some of the plants live, while Gina also continued the commentary too. So it was a bit messy because it was a bit of tech I'd not worked with. But I'm going to post that to subscribers. You subscribers, the Patreon subscribers, going to separate a video clip of that for you from last year. I'll try and put that up tomorrow for you, I hope. But anyway, what I did, I actually popped into the now overgrown herb spiral labyrinth and did a fairly spontaneous video of a few herbs that you know. And well, our time is moving on. So again, for those of you who are subscribers, I'm going to leave that and post that to you on Monday as well, tomorrow as well. So you got two videos from me with the herb spiral labyrinth here. And there's right, we got a question coming up. Prostate problems. There we go, Lisa. what sort of plants should people look out for that rather than reference? How would you answer that one?
Yeah, probably the best well-known native that we have would be nettle root. I've harvested quite a lot of nettle root. It's great when you want to clear a patch of them, actually. Actually, a lot of the herbs when I harvest, that's what I'm doing. I need to clear them out and I make them into medicine. But yeah, nettle root would be one of our natives. That would be good for the prostate. Saw palmetto would be another one.
Mm.
You know, and seed oils like pumpkin seed oil would be really good for the prostate also.
Yeah, I'm trying this. There was one I was thinking about yesterday. It wasn't the yarrow. It was another one that I was looking at, and it's just escaped my mind. I've actually got an herb spiral. I thought, oh, goodness me, that's definitely one for men as well. And again, it was through looking at it. It might come back to me. But I think it was on your website. I picked up, there was a book, and it is an absolutely fascinating book. Here's my art of it. The Conversations with Plants by Nikki Darrell. And I think that is the version that's on your website, a different color cover. Is that something that's been inspiring you, Lisa?
Well, Nikki's actually a friend of mine. And, you know, when people ask me these days, where should I go and train? Usually I send them to Nikki because she's just moved to Wexford there last year. She was in Cork. And she does a plant medicine school. And, you know, Nikki takes people in the experiential way that we're speaking about from day one. You know, people have the plants around them. They do all of this sensory part and they're learning about the plants by being with them. So, you know, I usually send people to Nikki. Nikki be, you know, great at all this as well. You could have a great conversation with her. She's a great herbalist.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, thank you so much, Lisa. We are, as usual, time passes just far too fast. And as I was saying to people that I do rely on subscribers. Now, I've got a couple of treat videos for you that I'm going to be sending you, the subscribers, on Monday. So if you like those videos, as they pound $1, euro a month, keeps the wheels ticking, and subscribers will be getting the individual videos and other ones I can put together as well. So that's the way to that one. Now, coming up, we're going to remain quite social with our subjects as well. Next week, it's Harvest Home, and here's the Harvest Home. There's a beautiful basket that was brought to the cottage by Bridget Foy, who watches this quite often in the evenings, and we had lovely gatherings up until the COVID, of course. But I know one of the guests next week, a popular person, is our storytelling, singing, bread baking Breezy Kelly from Donegal. She's going to be included on the Harvest Home gathering next week. But certainly come on board live as well, and with your how's your garden doing? Also your herbs as well. Bring them all on board. Let's feature what you're doing. Contact me, and so we can get your photos, videos up, and even be a live guest to go over your garden and your joy of harvest. And then 12th, we're still remaining social on the 12th of September, where we're going into your sanctuaries, your tree sanctuaries, your autumn gathering. Let's see how your tree sanctuaries are doing. And bring your poetry. These next 2 weeks is going to include stories and poetry. So do submit poetry, and we'll put you on live or with the videos as well. So that's Harvest Home next week, 12th of September, the week after Tree Sanctuaries. And then I'm going to get back to a bit of folklore on the 19th, which is going to be apple folklore and Avalon stories. And there's a lovely picture there that puts the top of Avalon and Glastonbury along with some apple trees down below. So that's the 19th of September. There's Joey Sparks here. Herb garden has grown quite a bit this year, learning more about how to use them. That's wonderful. But Joey has actually got a question, and this is a big question. I'm surprised it hasn't come up until now. Inflammation, a huge subject. Lisa?
What's good for inflammation? Yeah, I wonder if that's,
The approach, I think.
Yeah, if it's in the digestive tract, those herbs with mucilage. Okay, so the mullein, is good for inflammation, say in the lungs. Also in the digestion, but it's more significant for the lungs. And marshmallow, another herb with mucilage, would be good for inflammation in the digestive tract. Then you've herbs, like, it depends, I suppose, where the inflammation is. If it's in the joints, you've herbs like turmeric, devil's claw. Yeah, it depends where it is, really. Yeah.
And say again, a reminder, this is about, don't be scared. Although at the same time, be cautious and try and find yourself a guide. And I better put this up again because it's very important, because that's one option for you if you once it all starts post COVID. But get on the newsletter and keep in touch there with Lisa through irishherbalroots.ie, and that'll be wonderful. And do what you can. Something's come up. Oh, Joey says joints. It was the joints, keeping the joints going. And from your own garden, it helps. But find herbalists, find people who have lived with the plants, not who study the plants. And don't rely on someone because of the letters after their name. Look into how they've approached their life with plants. I think that's the ultimate important thing. If anything to be stressed through the last hour or so, that is the one thing. So thank you very much, Lisa, for that. It's been a real pleasure. You've been absolutely wonderful in going through with the pictures. It's been delightful, and it just went past too quickly, as this always does. So those people who are watching this as a archive, keep asking questions and post them as well. I'll post any questions to Lisa as well. And please subscribe. There's a bell icon on the YouTube. And any last words for Lisa Wash we have before we let her go? I know we're running into the overtime now. Any last comments?
Thanks so much for inviting me, John. I really
thank you. I'm glad you could. That was absolutely wonderful. And I'm lingering here, but I should be closing. So something's coming. Gary's come in with something. Wonderful session. Thanks for holding on all that time, Gary. Wonderful. Gary looks after, he does look after a bit, but he's got the ancient Wells of Ireland page group, which is absolutely wonderful as well. So enjoy a safe week, everyone. This has been great sharing Lisa with you. Wonderful day, wonderful week through you discovering your wonders, all those inspirations, all those enchantments that we get into in the week. Keep looking, keep smelling, keep tasting, keep touching, keep connected. And until next Sunday, that's it from us, from Lisa, from me. Thank you very much. Play well. And it's bye from me. Thank you. That's right. Right, that's it.